December 3rd, 2023. Arnold Kellerman found the camera at 11:47 p.m., hidden behind a loose panel in his trailer's kitchen. It had been recording for 6 months. Someone had been watching him sleep, eat, cry over old photographs of his daughter. Someone knew about the pills he counted every night, the same pills he'd been taking since 1987. The camera's memory card contained 2,847 hours of footage. But it was the note taped underneath that made Arnold's blood freeze. "I know what you did to Melody Richardson. I know why you really ran. Tomorrow the whole world knows too." 36 years of silence. 36 years of carrying a secret that destroyed 3 lives. And now, someone with all the evidence was ready to bury him with the truth. Arnold had 12 hours before the story went live. 12 hours to find his blackmailer. 12 hours to decide if some secrets are worth killing for. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Arnold's hands shook as he set the camera on his small kitchen table, the red recording light still blinking like a malevolent eye. The Airstream's LED strips cast harsh shadows across the device's black casing, making it look like some alien parasite that had been feeding on his privacy for half a year. He forced himself to breathe. 36 years of hiding had taught him that panic was a luxury he couldn't afford. The note crinkled in his weathered fingers as he read it again, each word a nail in his coffin. Melody Richardson. Christ, he hadn't heard that name spoken aloud since the trial that never happened. The trailer suddenly felt smaller, the aluminum walls pressing in like a tomb. Through the thin windows, the Mojave Desert stretched endlessly in the moonlight, the same barren landscape that had been his refuge since 1987. Barstow was 40 miles south, close enough for civilization but far enough that neighbors didn't exist. He'd chosen this isolation deliberately, but now it felt like a trap. Arnold limped to his bedroom, his left knee, destroyed in a motorcycle stunt gone wrong, grinding with each step. The injury that ended his Hollywood career had also saved his life that night, giving him a reason to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or maybe it was the right place, depending on how you looked at 36 years of guilt. From beneath his mattress, he pulled out a shoebox wrapped in plastic. Inside, yellowed newspaper clippings told the official story: rising starlet Melody Richardson dies in tragic accident. Studio mourns loss of promising young actress. Accidental overdose claims another Hollywood dream. All lies, all his fault. The truth lived in the photographs hidden beneath the clippings. Polaroids he should have destroyed decades ago but kept like a penitent's hair shirt. Melody's broken body sprawled across the studio lot's concrete, the blood pooling beneath her skull. And in the background, barely visible, the shadow of the man who pushed her from the catwalk above Stage 7, Victor Martinelli, Paramount's Golden Boy producer, the man with enough power to turn murder into accident with a few phone calls and strategic donations, the man who found Arnold hiding behind the equipment trucks, trembling and clutching his camera. "You didn't see anything," Martinelli had whispered, his breath reeking of scotch and cigarettes. "You were never here. Understand?" Arnold should have run then, should have taken the photos straight to the police. Instead, he thought of Sarah, his daughter, born with spina bifida, requiring surgeries that insurance wouldn't cover. Martinelli's offer was simple: silence for medical bills, a life for a life. So Arnold took the money and ran to the desert, carrying his daughter to specialists in Los Angeles every month until the cancer finally claimed her at 19. 10 years of treatment bought with blood money, 10 years of watching her fight for every breath while Melody Richardson rotted in Forest Lawn Cemetery, her killer accepting Academy Awards and living in Malibu mansions. But Martinelli was dead now. Arnold had read the obituary 5 years ago, heart attack at 73. He'd expected relief, closure, something. Instead, he felt only emptiness, like a guard walking away from a prison to find he'd become too institutionalized for freedom. So who the hell had planted this camera? Arnold examined the device more carefully. Professional grade, wireless transmission capable, the kind of equipment that costs serious money. This wasn't some amateur blackmailer looking for quick cash. This was someone with resources, patience, and intimate knowledge of what happened that December night. The police? Unlikely after all these years. Melody's family? Her parents were dead, no siblings. A journalist? Possible, but why wait 36 years? Unless... Arnold's blood chilled as another possibility emerged. What if Martinelli hadn't been working alone that night? What if someone else knew about the cover-up, someone who'd been biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to cash in their knowledge? He grabbed his laptop, an ancient Dell that took 5 minutes to boot up, and logged into his bank account. $43,000. His life savings accumulated from 15 years of fixing pickup trucks and farm equipment for Barstow's blue-collar residents. It might be enough for a payoff if that's what this was about. But deep in his gut, Arnold knew this wasn't about money. The note's tone was too personal, too vindictive. Someone wanted him destroyed, not enriched. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello, Arnold." The voice was electronically distorted, neither male nor female. "I see you found my little gift." Arnold's throat constricted. "What do you want?" "Justice. Something you helped steal 36 years ago. Martinelli's dead. It's over." A cold laugh. Victor Martinelli was a pig who got what he deserved. But you? You're still breathing, still living free while Melody rots in the ground. That ends tomorrow. The line went dead. Arnold stared at his reflection in the trailer's window, a broken-down old man whose sins had finally caught up with him. Outside, the desert wind howled like the voices of the dead demanding their due. He had 11 hours left. Arnold sat frozen in the sudden silence. The dead phone still pressed against his ear like he might somehow pull more words from the static. 11 hours. The phrase echoed in his skull, each repetition shrinking the walls of his sanctuary until he could barely breathe. His hands trembled as he set the phone down beside the camera, both devices now feeling radioactive with menace. The trailer's familiar sounds, the hum of the mini-fridge, the tick of the battery-powered clock Sarah had given him for his 50th birthday, seemed amplified in the desert quiet. Everything felt different now, contaminated. How long had that camera been watching him, recording him shuffling around in his boxers, heating up canned soup, talking to himself like the hermit he'd become? The violation crawled under his skin like desert scorpions. He limped to the small shrine he'd built in the living area's corner, his knees screaming with each step. Sarah's graduation photo smiled back at him from behind dusty glass, cap and gown hiding the wheelchair, brown eyes bright with determination despite the pain that never left her face. She'd fought to walk across that stage, fought for every breath, every day of her abbreviated life. The medical bills had been astronomical, but watching her accept her degree in social work had been worth every penny of Martinelli's blood money. Almost worth it. "I'm sorry, baby girl," he whispered to the photograph, his voice cracking. "I thought I could live with it. Thought I could carry this for both of us." Beside Sarah's photo sat the only other picture he displayed. Himself at 26, grinning beside a flaming Pontiac on some long-forgotten movie set. Back when Arnold Kellerman was Hollywood's go-to guy for motorcycle stunts, back when directors trusted him to thread a Harley through explosions at 60 miles per hour. Before the knee, before Sarah's diagnosis, before that December night changed everything. He'd been good at his job, fearless, some said, reckless, according to others. The truth lay somewhere between. He'd simply understood that calculated risk was different from stupidity. You studied every variable, planned for contingencies, then committed completely. It was a philosophy that had served him well until Victor Martinelli taught him that some risks couldn't be calculated, some contingencies couldn't be planned for. The desert wind picked up outside, rattling the Airstream's aluminum skin. Arnold had grown to love that sound over 15 years. It reminded him he was still alive, still breathing, still had another day to figure things out. Tonight it sounded like rattling chains, like something trying to get in. He walked to the kitchen window and peered through the blinds. Nothing but moonlit sand and Joshua trees stretching to the mountains. His nearest neighbor was 12 miles away, old Hector Morales, who ran a few head of cattle and minded his own business. Perfect for hiding, terrible for calling for help. The refrigerator's hum kicked into overdrive, making him jump. Christ, he was losing it. In 11 hours, someone planned to destroy his life, and he was getting spooked by kitchen appliances. Arnold opened the fridge and stared at its pathetic contents: expired milk, a six-pack of teke, leftover Chinese takeout from Barstow. The routine normalcy of it made his chest tight. This was his life now. Quiet desperation in a 30-foot trailer, sustained by gas station coffee and the mechanical rhythm of fixing other people's broken things. He'd built this existence carefully, one careful day after another, like constructing a house of cards in a windstorm. The beer was warm and bitter, but it steadied his hands. He pulled out his wallet and extracted the business card he'd carried for 15 years but never used. Detective Maria Santos, LAPD homicide. She'd been the responding officer to Melody's accident, a young detective who'd asked too many good questions before her superiors shut down the investigation. Arnold had memorized her name, following her career from a distance, watching her rise through the ranks with the kind of dogged persistence that solved cold cases. He'd written her letters a dozen times over the years, confessions that never got sent, sealed envelopes that lived in his desk drawer like unexploded bombs. Maybe it was time to finally pull the pin. But what if she was the voice on the phone? What if she'd figured it out, put together the pieces he'd left scattered across 3 decades? Cops were patient. They could wait years for the right moment to spring a trap. Arnold's reflection caught in the window again, and he studied the stranger looking back. Gray beard, deep-set eyes that had seen too much. Skin weathered by sun and guilt. 62 years old and nothing to show for it but a trailer full of regrets and a bank account funded by silence. His father would have been ashamed. Joseph Kellerman had raised his son to stand up, speak truth, take responsibility. 3 simple principles that Arnold had abandoned the moment Martinelli made his offer. Outside, a coyote yipped in the distance, the sound carrying across the emptiness like a warning. 10.5 hours left. Arnold crushed the empty beer can, the aluminum crumpling like his resolve. 10.5 hours to what? Public exposure? Arrest? Death? The voice had mentioned justice, but Arnold had learned that justice wore many faces, and not all of them were merciful. He was reaching for another beer when headlights swept across his window. Arnold froze, the refrigerator door casting a wedge of yellow light across his bare chest. The lights moved slowly, deliberately, like someone searching or hunting. His heart hammered against his ribs as he eased the door shut and killed the interior light, plunging the trailer into darkness. The engine sound was wrong, too smooth for the beat-up pickups his few visitors drove. This was something expensive, something that didn't belong in his corner of nowhere. Arnold pressed himself against the wall and peered through a gap in the blinds. A black sedan idled 50 yards away, its headlights trained on his trailer like spotlights on a stage. The windows were tinted dark, revealing nothing. Arnold held his breath, counting seconds that felt like hours. Then the car's door opened. A woman stepped out. Even in the harsh glare of headlights, Arnold recognized her immediately. 15 years of aging couldn't hide those sharp cheekbones, that confident stride. Detective Maria Santos approached his trailer with the measured pace of someone who'd walked into 1,000 dangerous situations and lived to tell about it. But she wasn't Detective Santos anymore, Arnold realized. The business card in his wallet was 15 years old. She'd be a lieutenant by now, maybe higher. And she was here, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. His legs gave out. Arnold slumped against the wall, the implications crashing over him like a collapsing building. The camera, the phone call, now Santos. This wasn't coincidence, this was orchestrated, planned, professional. 3 soft knocks echoed through the trailer, polite as a neighbor asking for sugar. "Mr. Kellerman?" Her voice carried the same authority he remembered from 15 years ago, when she'd interviewed him about Melody's accident. Back then, Arnold had lied with the desperation of a drowning man, spinning a story about being in the parking lot when he heard screaming. Santos had looked at him with those dark, intelligent eyes and known he was holding back. But she'd been young then, lacking the clout to push harder when her superiors told her to move on. "I know you're in there, Arnold. We need to talk." Arnold's mind raced through possibilities. Run? His knee made that impossible, and besides, where would he go? Fight? With what? The woman was armed, trained, and probably had backup waiting. Hide? In a 30-foot trailer from a cop who'd found him in the middle of the Mojave Desert? The knocking came again, more insistent. "I'm not here to arrest you," Santos called. "I'm here to save your life." Arnold nearly laughed. Save his life? After 36 years of silence, after building an entire existence on the foundation of covered-up murder? But something in her tone made him hesitate. This wasn't the voice of justice served cold. This was urgency, fear even. He limped to the door, his reflection catching in the window one more time. The stranger looking back had aged a decade in a single night. Arnold opened the door. Santos stood on his makeshift porch, and up close he could see the years had been kinder to her than they'd been to him. Her black hair was shot through with silver now, pulled back in a severe bun. Lines etched her face, but they were the lines of someone who'd earned each one. She wore a leather jacket over jeans, looking more like a tired traveler than a cop on official business. "Hello, Arnold." She stepped past him without invitation, her eyes immediately cataloging the trailer's interior. They lingered on the camera sitting on his kitchen table. "I see you found it. You planted that thing?" Santos shook her head, settling into a single chair like she belonged there. "I've been tracking whoever did for the past 3 months. They've been very busy." Arnold remained standing, his hand still on the open door. Cool desert air flowed through the opening, carrying the smell of sage and secrets. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're not their only target." Santos pulled out a tablet and swiped through several photographs. Each showed a different person, but Arnold recognized the haunted look they all shared, the specific weight of carrying terrible knowledge. 3 people connected to Melody Richardson's death, all under surveillance, all receiving ultimatums. Arnold's grip tightened on the doorframe. Who else knew? "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Santos set the tablet aside and fixed him with that same penetrating stare he remembered. "But here's what I do know. 2 of these people are already dead." The desert wind kicked up again, howling through the doorway like a warning from the grave. Arnold's carefully constructed world, 15 years of hiding, planning, surviving, crumbled like sandcastles before a tide. There was no going back now. Arnold slammed the door shut and backed away from Santos like she carried plague. "Dead? What do you mean, dead?" "Sit down, Arnold." "I don't want to sit down. I want you to explain what the hell is happening." His voice cracked on the last word, betraying the panic clawing at his chest. "You show up here talking about surveillance and ultimatums and—" "Tommy Briggs," Santos interrupted, her voice cutting through his spiral. "Remember him? Grip on stage 7 that night. Found hanging in his garage 3 weeks ago. Suicide note confessing to some gambling debts." She paused. "Except Tommy never gambled. His wife told me he was terrified of something, wouldn't leave the house for weeks before he died." Arnold felt the blood drain from his face. Tommy. Christ, he'd barely thought about the kid in 30 years. Young Grip, maybe 22, working nights to pay for film school. Arnold remembered seeing him near the catwalk that evening. Remembered the way Tommy's eyes had gone wide when Martinelli started barking orders about cleaning up the accident. "That doesn't prove anything," Arnold said, but his legs were shaking now. He gripped the kitchen counter for support. "Rita Vasquez." Santos pulled up another photo on her tablet, a middle-aged Latina woman with kind eyes, makeup artist. She prepped Melody's body before the coroner arrived, helped stage the overdose scene. "Car accident last month. Brake failure on a brand-new Toyota." Santos's eyes never left Arnold's face. Rita was a careful driver, maintained her car religiously. The mechanic said her brake lines looked like they'd been scored with a knife. The trailer felt like it was spinning. Arnold lurched toward the chair across from Santos, his knee buckling as he collapsed into it. 2 people dead. 2 people who'd helped cover up Melody's murder, just like him. The pattern was obvious, inevitable, terrifying. "Why are you telling me this?" he whispered. "'Cause you're next." Santos leaned forward, her cop mask slipping to reveal something almost human underneath. "Because whoever's doing this has been patient, methodical. They're working through everyone who helped Martinelli that night, and you're the biggest fish left." Arnold's hands trembled as he reached for his cigarettes, a habit he'd kicked 5 years ago but suddenly craved with desperate intensity. The pack was empty. Of course it was. Everything was falling apart at once. "What did the voice tell you?" Santos asked. "On the phone." Arnold's head snapped up. How did you? Because they called Tommy, too. And Rita. Same pattern. Hidden camera discovered, ultimatum delivered, then… She made a cutting gesture across her throat. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the desert wind battering the trailer's walls. Arnold studied Santos's face, looking for deception, for the trap he knew had to be lurking beneath her apparent concern. But all he saw was exhaustion and something that might have been guilt. You investigated Melody's death, he said finally. Back then, you knew something was wrong. Santos nodded slowly. I was young, stupid, thought evidence mattered more than politics. My captain pulled me off the case after 2 days, told me to focus on real crimes instead of chasing shadows. Her jaw tightened. I should have pushed harder, should have ignored orders and kept digging. Why didn't you? Because I was 28 years old and scared of losing my job. Because I convinced myself maybe I was wrong, maybe it really was an accident. She met his eyes. Because I was a coward just like you. The words hit Arnold like a slap. He started to protest, then stopped. What was the point? They both knew what he was, what he'd always been. A man who chose safety over truth, silence over justice. The only difference was Santos had found a way to live with her shame while his had metastasized into something cancerous. So what now? Arnold asked. You arrest me? After all this time? Santos shook her head. The statute of limitations on accessory after the fact ran out years ago. And besides, arresting you won't bring back Tommy or Rita. Won't stop whoever's hunting you. Then what do you want? I want to catch them before they kill you too. Santos pulled out her phone, scrolled through messages. Because here's what I think happened. Someone else was there that night. Someone who saw everything, recorded everything, but stayed quiet while Martinelli was alive. Maybe they were scared of him. Maybe they were waiting for the right moment. But now he's dead and they're tying up loose ends. Arnold felt something cold settle in his stomach. You think it's someone from the studio? I think it's someone who cared about Melody Richardson. Someone who's been planning this for 36 years. Santos stood, paced to the window. Someone who wants more than money or justice. Someone who wants revenge. Outside, a coyote howled in the distance, and Arnold shivered despite the trailer's stifling heat. The coyote's howl faded into silence, leaving only the wind and the weight of 36 years pressing down on Arnold's chest. Santos remained at the window, her silhouette rigid against the moonlight, and Arnold could feel the terrible momentum building, like standing on train tracks and hearing the distant whistle, knowing you should run but unable to move. Someone who cared about Melody, Arnold repeated, his voice hollow. You have any idea who? Santos turned from the window, and in the dim light her face looked carved from stone. Tell me about that night. Everything. Not the sanitized version you gave me 15 years ago. Arnold's throat constricted. He'd spent decades burying those details, building walls of routine and silence to keep them contained. But now, with Tommy and Rita dead, with his own execution scheduled in less than 10 hours, the walls were crumbling. She wasn't supposed to be there, he said finally. Melody. It was past midnight. Stage 7 was supposed to be empty. I was just picking up some gear I'd left behind, but she was there. With Martinelli, they were… Arnold's hands clenched into fists. She was trying to get away from him, screaming, crying. He had her backed against the catwalk railing. Santos sat back down, her cop instincts taking over. What were they arguing about? She was pregnant. The words came out like shards of glass. She was going to tell people, go public. Martinelli was married, had political ambitions. He couldn't afford the scandal. The memory crashed over Arnold with fresh brutality, Melody's voice echoing through the soundstage, young and desperate and doomed. She'd been 23, barely older than Sarah would have been, a girl with dreams and talent and a future that Martinelli snuffed out with a single shove. You saw him push her. I saw him grab her shoulders, saw her go over the railing. Arnold's voice cracked, heard her hit the concrete 40 feet down. The sound… Santos waited, letting the silence stretch until Arnold filled it. I should have called for help immediately, should have screamed, run down to check on her. but I just stood there like a goddamn statue watching Martinelli panic. Arnold wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. By the time I moved, he was already on his radio calling for cleanup. Not paramedics. Cleanup. Who responded? Studio security first. Then Martinelli's people, men in suits who moved like they'd done this before. They had a story ready before her body was cold. Overdose in her dressing room. They even had the needle. Arnold remembered watching them work with sick fascination. The efficiency of it, the casual way they'd discussed staging the scene. Like directing a movie, except the actress was dead and the audience was history itself. And then, Santos prompted. Then Martinelli noticed me. Arnold's stomach clenched at the memory. He walked over like we were old friends, told me Sarah's medical bills must be getting expensive, mentioned how tragic it would be if something happened to her insurance coverage. The threat had been elegant in its simplicity. Arnold's daughter was dying slowly, expensively, and Martinelli controlled the studio insurance that kept her alive. One word from him and Sarah would lose her coverage, lose her treatments, lose her life. So you helped them move the body. Arnold nodded, hating himself. Tommy was there by then, terrified out of his mind. Rita showed up with her makeup kit. We all did what we were told because we all had something to lose. And the cameras? Security footage? Mysteriously malfunctioned that night. All of them. Arnold laughed bitterly. Amazing how technology fails when you need it most. Santos was typing notes on her tablet, her fingers moving with mechanical precision, but Arnold caught something else in her expression, a flicker of recognition that made his blood freeze. "What?" he demanded. "Nothing, I just—" Santos hesitated, then set the tablet aside. There was someone else asking questions back then, not a cop, someone from outside. They kept calling the station, demanding to know why the investigation was being shut down so quickly. Arnold's heart hammered against his ribs. Who? I don't know. The desk sergeant took most of those calls. But I remember him being frustrated. Said someone was making noise about the Richardson girl, even after the case was closed. Santos met his eyes. Someone who wouldn't let it go. The pieces clicked together in Arnold's mind like bullets sliding into a chamber. Someone who'd cared enough about Melody to keep asking questions. Someone who'd stayed quiet while Martinelli was alive but emerged after his death. Someone with patience and resources, and 36 years of rage. They were waiting, Arnold whispered. All this time they were waiting for the right moment. Santos nodded grimly. And now they're ready to finish what Martinelli started. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the trailer like a warning bell. Arnold realized with crystal clarity that his 15 years of hiding were over. The reckoning he'd postponed was finally here, and it wore the face of someone who'd loved a dead girl more than they feared the living. Arnold stared at Santos, his mind racing through possibilities, and then a terrible thought crystallized. You said someone was making noise about the Richardson girl, someone who wouldn't let it go. He leaned forward, studying her face in the dim light. You know who it was, don't you? Santos's silence stretched too long, and Arnold felt something cold crawl up his spine. Her fingers drummed against the tablet, a nervous tell he'd missed before. Detective Santos, he said slowly, how exactly did you find me tonight? I've been tracking. No, Arnold stood abruptly, his damaged knee protesting. You said you've been tracking whoever planted the camera for 3 months. But how did you know to track anything at all? Tommy and Rita are dead, but their deaths look like suicide and accident. Why would a cop connect them to a 36-year-old case? Santos's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I kept tabs on the case over the years. When Tommy died, Bullshit. The word came out harder than Arnold intended, but clarity was flooding through him like ice water. You're retired, aren't you? Have been for years. That leather jacket, the civilian clothes, the fact that you're here alone at midnight? He backed toward the kitchen, putting distance between them. Real cops don't work like this. Santos remained seated, but her posture had shifted. Less relaxed, more coiled. Arnold, you're paranoid. It's understandable, given... Show me your badge. Silence. Show me your fucking badge, Detective Santos. She stood slowly, her hand moving not toward a badge but toward something else, and Arnold saw her clearly for the first time. The silver in her hair wasn't premature aging. The lines on her face weren't from stress. Maria Santos would be in her 60s now, not the sharp-featured woman standing in his trailer. "Who are you?" he whispered. The woman smiled, and it transformed her entire face, revealing something predatory that had been hiding beneath the cop mask. "My name is Elena Richardson. Melody was my sister." The trailer tilted around Arnold. He grabbed the counter, his legs threatening to give out completely. Sister. The person who'd been calling the police station, demanding answers. The one who wouldn't let it go. "You're dead," Arnold stammered. "Melody was an only child. I remember reading—" "Half-sister," Elena corrected, her voice losing the professional cop cadence and becoming something else entirely. Cultured, educated, patient as a spider. Different fathers. I was already in college when she moved to LA, using our mother's maiden name for her acting career. The press never made the connection. Arnold's mind reeled, trying to process the implications. "You've been planning this for 36 years. Planning is such a crude word. Elena moved closer, and Arnold could see the resemblance now. The same cheekbones, the same intelligent eyes. But where Melody's had held warmth and dreams, Elena's burned with decades of calculated hatred. I prefer to think of it as justice with a long fuse. The real Maria Santos died in a car accident 8 months ago. I've been wearing her identity like a costume, gaining access to police files, tracking down everyone who helped murder my sister." Elena's smile widened. "You have no idea how easy it is to become someone else when you have enough money and motivation." Arnold's hand found the kitchen drawer behind him, fingers searching for the knife he kept there. "You killed Tommy and Rita." "Tommy hanged himself. I simply gave him the rope." Elena's voice carried no remorse, only satisfaction. Men like him are fundamentally weak. Apply the right pressure and they break beautifully. "And Rita?" "Rita required a more hands-on approach. She actually tried to fight back. I respected that." Elena tilted her head, studying Arnold like a specimen. "I'm curious which category you'll fall into." Arnold found the knife handle, slowly wrapping his fingers around it. "What do you want?" "I want you to suffer like my sister suffered. I want you to feel helpless and desperate and abandoned." Elena's composure cracked slightly, revealing the molten rage beneath. "But mostly, I want you to know that everything you sacrificed her for was meaningless. My daughter needed—" "Your daughter died anyway, didn't she, Arnold?" Elena's words hit like physical blows. 3 years after you helped cover up Melody's murder. All that guilt, all that compromise, and Sarah died anyway. You sold your soul for nothing." The knife slipped from Arnold's numb fingers, clattering to the floor. The absolute truth of it, the cosmic joke his life had become, crashed over him with devastating force. Sarah had died despite everything, despite his cowardice, his silence, his willing participation in evil. The medical care that had been his justification, his rationalization for 36 years of guilt, had failed anyway. "You arrogant bastards," Elena continued, her voice rising. "You thought love made you weak, but love is what gave me strength to hunt you down, one by one, and show you what real weakness looks like." Arnold looked into her eyes and saw his future, and it was measured in hours, not years. Arnold stared at the knife on the floor, watching his reflection fragment across its surface. The weight of Elena's words pressed down on him like the desert heat, inescapable, suffocating. Sarah had died anyway. 3 years of borrowed time purchased with Melody's blood, and it hadn't been enough. "You don't understand," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Sarah was everything to me. When her mother left, when the doctor said she had maybe 2 years without treatment. I understand perfectly." Elena moved closer, her footsteps deliberate on the trailer's worn linoleum. "You chose your daughter over mine. You thought your love mattered more than Melody's life." Arnold lifted his head, meeting her gaze. "Yes, I did." The admission hung between them like a confession at gunpoint. Elena's eyes flickered, surprised perhaps at his honesty. "At least you're not lying to yourself anymore," she said. "That's more than Tommy managed. He spent his last hour trying to convince me he was just following orders, that he never had a choice. Pathetic." Arnold thought about Tommy, barely out of college, probably supporting his family, maybe paying for school. Another person caught in Martinelli's web, another life destroyed by proximity to power. How many of us were there? That night? 7 people helped move Melody's body and stage the overdose. Martinelli's dead. Cancer got him before I could. 2 security guards died in what appeared to be unrelated incidents over the past 5 years. Elena's voice carried the satisfaction of a woman checking items off a shopping list. Tommy, Rita, you, and one more. Who's the last one? Elena smiled. Dr. Marcus Webb, the studio physician who signed Melody's death certificate, confirming the overdose that never happened. He's scheduled for tomorrow night. Arnold's stomach clenched. Webb had been in his 70s back then, which meant he was ancient now, assuming he was still alive. What if I refuse to play your game? What if I call the police, tell them everything? With what proof? I'm using a dead woman's identity, and I've been very careful about evidence. Besides, Elena pulled out her phone, swiped to a video file. I have 36 hours of footage from your trailer. Every moment of guilt, every nightmare, every time you've broken down crying about Sarah. The screen showed Arnold at his kitchen table 2 weeks ago, drunk and sobbing, talking to Sarah's photograph, telling his dead daughter how sorry he was, how he'd failed her, how he wished he could trade places. Arnold watched himself fall apart and felt something die inside his chest. I could release this to the media, Elena continued. Let the world see what a broken old man looks like. Or I could keep it private, between us. Your choice depends on how you spend your remaining time. Arnold forced himself to look away from the phone. What do you want me to do? I want you to call Dr. Webb. Warn him that I'm coming. Give him a chance to run, to fight back, to show more spine than you did 36 years ago. Elena's smile turned predatory. I want to hunt something with teeth for once. The request was so unexpected that Arnold laughed, a bitter, broken sound that seemed to surprise them both. You want me to help you kill him? I want you to give him the choice you never gave Melody, the chance to save himself that you denied my sister when you stood there and watched Martinelli murder her. Arnold studied Elena's face, looking for sanity and finding only the terrible logic of someone who'd spent decades planning revenge. She wasn't crazy. She was worse. She was methodical. And after Webb? After Webb, you and I are going to have a very long conversation about justice, about what you owe Melody's memory, about how a man pays for 36 years of cowardice. Elena moved to the window, gazing out at the desert darkness. But first, you're going to make that phone call. Arnold's mind raced through possibilities. He could refuse, try to fight, attempt to run. But Elena had planned this for decades, had resources and patience and nothing left to lose. She'd already killed 3 people and destroyed his last shred of self-respect. What was left to fight for? Why didn't you just kill me in my sleep? He asked. Would have been easier. Elena turned back to him, and for a moment he saw something almost human in her eyes. Grief, maybe, or exhaustion. Because easy deaths are for people who feel guilt. Martinelli died easy in his sleep, never knowing I was coming for the rest of you. But you've been living with what you did all these years. You've been suffering. I want to see how much more you can take before you break completely. Arnold looked at the knife on the floor again, then at Elena's expectant face. Outside, the wind was picking up, carrying the scent of distant rain, the kind of desert storm that could wash away everything, given time. He reached for his phone. Arnold's fingers trembled as he held the phone, Webb's number glowing on the screen like an accusation. The weight of 36 years pressed down on him. Every sleepless night, every moment of cowardice, every choice that had led him to this trailer in the desert with a dead girl's sister watching him with eyes full of patient hatred. I can't, he whispered, setting the phone down. I won't help you kill anyone else. Elena's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air between them, a subtle tightening, like the moment before lightning strikes. You helped kill Melody. I was weak, scared, but I'm not a murderer. Arnold stood straighter, feeling something he hadn't experienced in decades, the possibility of choosing courage over survival. You want to torture Webb, you'll have to do it without me. Your daughter's medical bills? My daughter is dead. The words came out with surprising strength. Sarah's been dead for 33 years. Whatever debt I owed her, whatever justification I used, it's finished. I won't destroy another life to pay for my mistakes. Elena moved with fluid precision, crossing the trailer in 3 steps. Her hand emerged from her jacket holding a small pistol, its barrel finding the space between Arnold's eyes. You don't get to grow a conscience now. Not after what you cost me. Arnold stared down the gun barrel and felt an unexpected calm settle over him. Death had been circling for years, in his damaged body, his guilty conscience, his empty life. Maybe it was time to stop running from it. Melody was 23, he said quietly. She had her whole life ahead of her. Dreams, talent, people who loved her. He gestured toward the gun. Pull the trigger. Send me to wherever she is so I can apologize properly. For the first time since revealing her identity, Elena hesitated. The gun wavered slightly in her grip. You think dying makes you noble? You think it erases what you did? No, but it stops me from doing anything worse. Arnold took a step closer to the weapon. I spent 36 years being a coward. I'm tired of it. Elena's breathing quickened, her composed mask cracking. You don't understand. I need Webb to know what's coming. I need him to feel the fear Melody felt, to die the way she died, helpless and betrayed by everyone who should have protected her. Then go kill him yourself. But you won't get absolution from me, and you won't turn me into your accomplice again. Arnold's voice grew stronger with each word. I helped murder your sister by staying silent. I won't help you murder anyone else by speaking. The gun shook in Elena's hands. Decades of planning, of careful orchestration, were unraveling because the broken old man she'd come to torment had finally found his spine. You owe me. I owe Melody, not you. Arnold reached out slowly, placing his finger on the gun barrel and pushing it against his forehead. You want justice? Here it is. But I won't be your hunting dog. Elena's face contorted with rage and something deeper, grief that had curdled into poison over 36 years. She was innocent. She was everything good in the world, and you let them throw her away like garbage. You're right. Arnold's admission seemed to deflate Elena slightly. We did. I did. And I've been paying for it every day since, just like you have. But becoming monsters won't bring her back. Then what will? The question erupted from Elena like a sob, raw and desperate. Tell me what will make this right, what will give me peace, what will let me sleep without seeing her face. Nothing. Arnold's voice was gentle now, understanding. Nothing will bring her back or make this right. I've been searching for absolution for 36 years and never found it. You won't find it in revenge either. Elena's gun hand dropped to her side. For a moment she looked like what she was, an old woman who'd spent her entire adult life consumed by loss, who'd become the very thing she sought to punish. She would have been 59 this year, Elena whispered. She would have had children, grandchildren, a life. I know. Arnold moved carefully, sitting back down at his kitchen table. I think about that too, about who she would have become, what she would have given the world. Outside, the first drops of rain began hitting the trailer's roof, scattered at first, then building to a steady rhythm. The desert storm Elena had been waiting for was finally here. She looked at the gun in her hand as if surprised to find it there. I don't know how to stop. This is all I've been for so long. Arnold nodded toward the chair across from him. Then maybe it's time to learn how to be something else. Elena stared at him for a long moment, the weight of decades visible in her face. Then, slowly, she set the gun on the counter and sat down. The rain drummed harder against the trailer's aluminum skin, and Arnold found himself grateful for the sound. It filled the silence that stretched between them like a bridge neither knew how to cross. Elena sat across from him, her hands flat on the scarred formica table, studying the grain as if it held answers to questions she'd forgotten how to ask. Tell me about her, Arnold said finally. Not the victim, not the case file. Tell me about Melody. Elena's fingers curled into fists, then slowly relaxed. She used to practice her lines in the mirror for hours. Not just memorizing, she'd try different interpretations, different emotional beats. She said every word was a choice, every pause was a doorway. Her voice softened, remembering. I thought it was silly. I was getting my MBA, climbing corporate ladders. I thought acting was frivolous. Arnold waited, letting the desert rain fill the space between her words. She sent me postcards from LA. Terrible jokes on the back. Why did the actress cross the road? To get to the audition on the other side. Things like that. Elena's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile once. I still have them, 36 years later, and I still have her stupid postcards. The confession hung in the air like incense in a church, sacred and slightly suffocating. Arnold thought about the box under his bed where he kept Sarah's drawings, her school photos, the last birthday card she'd made him before the illness took her ability to hold a crayon steady. She called me the night before, Elena continued. Said she had a meeting with someone important, someone who could change everything. She was so excited she could barely form sentences. The almost smile died completely. That was the last time I heard her voice. Arnold closed his eyes, seeing again that December night 36 years ago, Melody backing away from Martinelli, her face shifting from confusion to fear to desperate understanding. The way she'd looked around the room, cataloging the faces of everyone who could save her and wouldn't. She saw me, he said quietly. At the end, when she realized what was happening, she looked right at me. Elena's breath caught. What did she say? Nothing, but her eyes. Arnold opened his own eyes, meeting Elena's gaze. She knew I could stop it, and she knew I wouldn't. The rain intensified, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the desert like an old engine turning over. Elena wiped her face with the back of her hand, though Arnold couldn't tell if it was rain from the leaky window or tears. I used to think about what I would have done, Elena said. If I'd been there, if I'd been you. I always imagined myself being brave, fighting them, saving her. She laughed bitterly. Easy to be a hero in your own imagination. You spent 36 years hunting us down. That took a different kind of courage. That wasn't courage. That was obsession. Elena stared out the rain-streaked window. I became everything I hated. Calculating, manipulative, willing to destroy innocent people to get what I wanted. Rita had grandchildren, did you know that? Pictures on her desk of kids who'll grow up wondering why Grandma drove off that bridge. Arnold felt the familiar weight of complicity settling on his shoulders. Even in this conversation, even in this moment of shared grief, he was still part of the machinery that destroyed lives. What happens now? Elena was quiet for a long time, listening to the storm. When she spoke, her voice was different, tired but somehow cleaner. I call the police. Real police. Tell them what I've done, what I know about Melody's death. Let them sort through the wreckage. They'll arrest you. Good. Maybe I'll finally get some sleep. Elena stood slowly, like a woman much older than her years. Will you come with me? To the police station? They'll want to hear your side of it. Arnold thought about the questions that would come, the lawyers, the media attention, the way his quiet desert exile would explode into something public and ugly. Then he thought about Melody's eyes that night, and about Sarah, who'd taught him that love sometimes meant choosing the harder path. Yes, he said, I'll come. Elena picked up the gun from the counter, ejected the magazine, and set both pieces on the table between them. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your daughter. For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your sister. They sat together as the storm reached its peak, two old people who'd spent decades being destroyed by the same moment, finally finding something like peace in the eye of their shared hurricane. Outside, the desert drank the rain greedily, washing away dust and debris, making space for whatever might grow in the aftermath. When the thunder faded, they would call the police. But for now, they simply listened to the rain and remembered the people they'd been before that December night changed everything.